Hi guys, my name is James Lannan. I am the Western Regional Director for the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, and I am coming to you from my lockdown quarters in my office at work. I am considered essential, so I get to report to work every day, and I have actually done everything from filing to catching up on stuff that I normally wouldn't be able to. The reason for this video, that's probably the most important reason why you're actually watching me right now. Lee Hubbard, our executive director, a little while ago, put out a request for everybody in the membership to make some type of instructional development video or training video that we could push out to all of you so we can all maintain our kind of level while we're on lockdown. So I'm going to preface this by saying I am not an expert in video editing. I am not an expert in long distance learning. I am not an expert by any shape or means in computers. But over the last couple of years, what I have learned is that when you have an audience that's kind of abroad, an audience that you may not be able to have face-to-face contact with, video is probably one of the best mediums you could use. That being said, I've kind of taught myself over the last few years how to do video editing, how to utilize YouTube, how to utilize social media to get a message out to our folks. So I wanted to take a couple minutes, actually about 30 or 40, to show you how to use some simple video editing software, do screen captures, even do PowerPoint presentations online that you can send out to your folks so they can keep up with their training requirements as we all kind of push through our current situation. So the fun thing is I'm actually going to show you how to create this video. And we're going to go through two different types of software. We're going to go through video editing and screen capture software because some of you like to use PowerPoint, do audio over the top of that, or maybe you're trying to show them how to use a program. Recently, we switched from one report management system to another, so I've been making a lot of instructional videos, very short segments on how to do certain things within the program. So this is good for that. There is a ton of uses for this. So the programs I'm going to use are either going to be free or very little cost to you at all. So most of these things you could actually start doing today if you really wanted to. So we're going to look at two different types of screen capture software, and we're going to look at two types of video editing software. One of them comes on most PCs at no charge via Windows 10. The other one is a free download as long as you don't want to pay for it. And the screen capture softwares are both free. So that should make life pretty easy for you. So welcome to my desktop. As you can see, some things are a little bit more organized than others. I don't know what your desktop looks like. I won't judge if you don't. So before we get into actual screen capture, video editing, or any of that stuff, I want to talk about some computer requirements. Like I said before, I am not by any means do I declare myself to be a computer expert, but I have learned quite a few things in the last couple of years of doing this. So first thing I want to talk about is actual requirements to the computer. So I'm just going to scroll down here. I'm going to go to Settings, I'm going to go to System, and I'm going to scroll all the way down here to About. Now this computer that I'm using for this project is relatively new. Actually, it's about 4 months old. I bought it specifically because the old computer I was using was not capable of doing a lot of the video editing that we wanted to do within our district. So we spent a little bit of money on this computer. It's got 32 gigs of RAM, and it's got an i7 processor in it, which is, I won't say top of the line, but it's pretty well up there. Now, that being said, you don't need all of this computing power to do standard or minimal video editing. Most computers will do this with 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and anything with an i3 or newer will get you where you want to go. I just do this because I'm an impatient person and I like my videos to be done pretty quick. Now, the one recommendation I will make is if you get into video editing, you decide to do this a little bit more, what I would highly suggest is getting a computer that is capable of this. I am currently using an MSI Trident 3. It is a very small and compact computer, and it is one of the best computers I've ever owned, and it was reasonably priced. The next thing I want to talk about in this computer is you'll see that I have two different hard drives. This hard drive right here is the one I want to discuss. This is a 500 gig solid state drive. Now, I know there's a lot of buzzwords running around in here, but a solid state drive essentially is kind of like a thumb drive. It records everything to a chip, so it gets there very fast. The computer can locate the items very fast. It can process it very fast. This is a standard hard drive, so this has essentially a disk in it that the hard drive writes magnetic kind of the zeros and ones to process data. The difference is that in this hard drive, the standard one, the computer has to send a message to the hard drive. It has to scan the whole thing, find what you're looking for, and bring it back. In the grand scheme of things, it may not seem like it takes that long, but when we're talking about video editing and the word render, which we'll discuss here in a little bit, when we're discussing that, it makes a huge difference on how fast your computer can actually process and finish the video for you. So if you have the opportunity, I would highly suggest using the solid state drive. Okay, so those are the computer requirements. Everything else is pretty simple. Before we get into screen capture and video editing, one of the things I want to show you how to do is utilize your webcam. And I know that sounds pretty simple for most of us, and most of us know how to do it, but I want to roll through it real quick for the people who may not be as computer savvy. So you don't need any special software to utilize your webcam. If you're using a Windows 10 computer, all you have to do is type in camera. I love the little search bar down at the bottom left, by the way. Click on camera and you'll get to see me again. It's kind of interesting that I'm doing a screen capture of making a video, but we'll get to that here in just a little bit. So I'm not using an expensive webcam. You don't need to go out and spend $100 or $200 on webcam, because there are some out there that are that expensive. Those are more for the people who do YouTube streaming, Facebook Live, or game streaming, stuff like that. This will work just fine. This is an HD webcam. It's capable of doing 1080p, and it cost me like $40 at Walmart. So it's just a standard Logitech webcam. You can utilize whatever you like, but what's more important is the software we're going to look at. So this is absolutely free, doesn't cost anything, and the controls are relatively simple. If you want to utilize some type of third-party software, you're welcome to do that. But I want to give you a couple of tips for actual filming first. If you notice, I actually kind of cleaned up my office a little bit. There's nothing on my desk. There's some interesting stuff in the background. I wish I would have got rid of those cases back there, but that's okay. One of the biggest things you can do, just like you're teaching in front of an audience, is make sure that your background is free of any type of visual distractions. Unfortunately, in my lockdown mode, I can't turn off my phone, but I have turned down the radio that's in my office. I've muted my computer sounds, all that other stuff, so it is less distracting when I'm trying to make this video. All right, so as far as controls go, on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see 4 different controls. They are relatively simple. This first one is actually to make video. So we click on this, it'll start recording the video. And what I will tell you is there's a simple trick to this. Instead of clicking the button, you can actually press the space bar to start and stop the video recording. This is really handy for me because, quite frankly, when I made the introductory video, it took me about 10 or 12 tries before I was able to say and do what I wanted to do. All right, excuse me, I got the sniffles. No, I don't have the corona. So we go down here. The next thing, you can actually take a still photo. I don't use this very often. The next thing is document. If you want to scan a document, for example, just a standard piece of paper, it's going to put it up there. It's going to frame it. It's going to try to scan it. But honestly, it's not great. And this last one is a whiteboard presentation. I would highly suggest not using that. It can be very complicated. So we're going to get rid of the blue screen that's on there. Go back to the video. Next thing I want to show you is the settings over here. Most of this stuff you're not going to have to mess with. This program should automatically detect what your camera and your computer are capable of, so it's not that big of a deal. The framing grid, some people like to use that to remind them where they need to be. You really should be like shoulders up, head framed in kind of like this. If you notice where this line is, it's right across my shoulders. My head's up here. You want a little bit of space between your head and your head and the top of the screen in case you want to zoom in or edit later. You can use the golden ratio. Some people like that. Some people just like knowing their center in the screen. I've done this enough times. I really just don't need that anymore. But if you want to utilize it, I suggest you do it. No, it does not record the actual squares when you do the video. Next thing in the photo quality, you always want this turned up. Remember, this is photos only. This is not the video. The video, on the other hand, is pretty important. You want it the highest quality that your camera and that your computer can support. So for me, it's 1080p, and some older computers, it's 720. You can even go down to 480. And the reason why you would do that is if you don't have much hard drive space or your computer can't process that type of video. So most computers can process 720 at 30 frames per second, and we'll talk about all that when we get into video editing software. And the reason why it's important to know what your computer is capable of is because you don't want to make a video and then not be able to edit it because either your computer or your editing software is not capable of it. So we go down to this part, this flicker reduction thing, 60 hertz is just fine. You might put it down to 50, but it's really not going to make a big difference in the way that the end user views the video. So I never do any of the experimental feature stuff. I don't want to be the one that's working out their bugs. So that is really it for webcam capture. It works out pretty well. It's pretty easy to use. So the next thing we're going to move on to is we're going to talk about doing screen capture, which is what I think a lot of you are going to want to do. Now, screen capture can be extremely helpful if you're trying to do like a long distance PowerPoint, if you're trying to do a teaching video over a specific software program, anything like that. And you have a lot of options when it comes to utilizing software for screen capture. So Windows 10 comes standard with the Xbox gaming console that you can actually record the screen. However, that is just for that. It's for gaming. So I'm going to show you two different softwares you can download for free. They both have pros and cons to them, and they both have their specific uses, at least for me. Now, if you don't like those, I'm sure there's plenty more out there, but the first one I want to talk about is actually going to be Flashback Express. So Flashback Express, you should be able to see on your screen right now. It says you can download Pro or you can download Express, and this is what we want to download. Now, if you download Pro, you have to pay for it after your free trial expires. I'm not sure how much that is, and the reason why I don't use Pro is because Pro includes video editing software, and I use a different program or two for that just because the other program I use is a lot better. So after you download Flashback Express and install it, we go down here to the home screen. It's going to be under this start menu option of Blueberry software. Now, Blueberry software is kind of a funny name, but that's okay. So we want to use Flashback Express Recorder. The funny thing about this is I'm not using this to record the screen right now, and I'm going to show you how that is in just a minute. But so we're going to open this up, and as it populates, it's going to come up with these couple of things, and you can see me again. I'm going to get rid of that for just a second. I'm going to come back to it. So I use a separate microphone completely compared to the webcam microphone, just because I find it picks up a little bit better. I'm going to show you that right here. Here, we'll click on this. You'll see it down here in this bottom screen. I'll move the webcam down. It's just that thing right there. That microphone was $20 whole off of Amazon. It comes with a pop filter. It's a USB mic, and it's much more sensitive, and it can get closer. You don't have so much background or aeration noise as you do with the webcam mic. So this actually works really, really easy, and what I like about this is you can either record one monitor or two. Some people like to use dual monitor setup. I'm one of those people. But what I'll warn you about is that when you do screen capture, you don't really want to do two monitors. It can be very distracting, especially if you have something up on the other side. Much like we've discussed before, you want to have a clean desk, clean background. If you have both your monitors running and you're only actually showing people something on one, they could be paying attention to what's going on in the other. So the settings feature has a ton of stuff that you can do. There's some cool stuff that I want to show you. You can actually record the webcam at the same time. This is how you set that up. Record mode preferences, desktop. You can actually change your desktop paper every time this opens up. So if you have a personal picture, like a lot of us do on your desktop, you can actually, when this opens up, it'll automatically change your desktop to a plain color or plain picture and away from that personal picture. If you're trying to show something like coding, I don't know why you do that in the fire service, but let's say you do, you can actually have it capture your keystrokes so it shows what you're doing on the screen at the same time. Hotkeys, you can determine, these are essentially keyboard shortcuts and a couple of other things. Personally, I don't think we need to use any of that. I use all the defaults. So what I'm going to show you is essentially how to do the screen capture with this. And we're going to do this 2 different ways. We're going to do it without the webcam and with the webcam. So it's pretty darn simple. You just press the record button, and it's actually going to record a screen capture within the screen capture. It'd be pretty funny. So it gives you a little countdown, 3, 2, 1, and then it's going to go. And it's going to show whichever screen I'm on, which should be this one right here, and it minimizes, so you can always put that down at the bottom, or if you're like me, I move it over to my other screen so people can't see it. Much like the other items, you can utilize the space bar to stop and start recordings. So we made a very small recording. We're going to go ahead and stop it, and it's going to ask you what you want to do with the recording. You have 2 choices at this point. If you press just the save button, it's gonna save it as a Flashback Express file extension, not a MP4, not as a video extension, but a specific recall for this program itself. So you can't like open it in Windows Media Player or QuickTime or any of that other stuff. So I go straight into review, and the review is going to pop up the screen, and the screen looks a little advanced, and it really is, considering you won't use any of this. The reason for this screen is this is the same screen that comes with Pro that allows you to do video editing, which we don't need to do. We're going to do that in a different program. And I can't stress enough of why that's important. This program, even if you buy Pro, is not going to include everything the other program I'm going to show you, and it's free. So all we need to do is go to File, and we need to export it, and we want to save it as an MPEG-4. So let's talk about these 3 choices real quick while we're in here, because we'll see it again when we get into video editing. An MPEG-4 is pretty much the standard web upload that you're going to look at. This is what's accepted by YouTube, Facebook, and any of those other social media platforms. AVI is great, but AVI is more for like if you're going to save it and record it to a DVD, which not very many people are doing anymore. And Windows Media Video is a Windows specific file. The only issue you're going to have with a Windows specific file is it may not be able to be playable on Mac. So we're going to save this as an MPEG-4, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. And it's going to ask us some other stuff, and the fact of the matter is all of this should already be preset, and you shouldn't have to mess with any of it. So we're going to go ahead and export it, and I have it saved here, and I don't need to keep this. So I'm going to label it as something, delete when done. And I can't spell. That's okay. Delete. Don't worry about that. We're just going to ignore it. So now it's saved. I don't need this open anymore. We're going to exit out of this completely. Perfect. Alright, so then it's going to ask you when you try to exit out, is it's complete, do you want to view it? My answer is going to be no. I know what I've saved, and then we're going to exit out of this. And again, no, I don't need to view it. And it should close the program here pretty quick. There it goes. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the ability to record within the webcam. So we're going to start just like we did it before. We're going to open up Blueberry software. We're going to open up the recorder. It's going to pop up on the screen. And what I really like about this is if I'm going to send out a PowerPoint, the thing is all of us at some point or another have watched maybe a CE video or a PowerPoint online for online school, and you have somebody in the background talking about it. Not only is that cumbersome to do a PowerPoint as it's being narrated, because maybe sometimes the screen transitions don't match up with the voice, but I feel that students who are doing long distance learning, or students or members who are watching the PowerPoint from afar, lose a lot in voice inflection, transition, and most of all, they lose a lot in body language. So having the webcam on at the same time is going to kind of give us a screen in a screen. So this time we're going to record it a little bit different. And we're going to go ahead and press record here. And it's going to ask me again which monitor, and I'm going to record on my main monitor. And it's going to pop up and give me my countdown. and it's going to start recording. The difference you're going to see now when we pull this file up is down there in the corner. It's going to show, and I'm going to overlay this here in just a second. It's going to show the PowerPoint, and then it's going to show the webcam up in the top. So I'm going to open up the PowerPoint now, and I'm just going to open up EMT PowerPoint that I was messing with a little while ago. Drag it over to the main screen, so now you should be able to see it, and my photo should be up, or excuse me, my webcam should be up here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and present the slideshow, but I want to change, and I'm going to bring the main screen over here, so now you should see me in the top left corner, and I can talk about the PowerPoint and go through it while you get to see me. And that's the cool part about this, is because I, as the instructor now, you can see my face while I'm talking. Not that everybody wants to see it, but you can see my face up here, and you get my voice inflection, you get my facial characteristics, and you get my body language as we go. It's kind of a cool little feature of the Express. So we'll go ahead and exit out of that. And so that's pretty much for this program. The next thing we're going to look at is a free program from Logitech that does something just slightly different. So we're going to go ahead and pop this up. That's Flashback. Let me see if I can get this one. Well, let's just do this. So we'll type in Logitech, because I'm going to show you the easiest. I just do Logitech Capture video recording streaming. So it's going to pop up, and we want to go to this, and we're still looking for Logitech Capture right here. And it's free. You can do it for Windows, and most everybody's on 10 now. So download and install that. And what you end up with is you come in here to your start menu, obviously. You can find Logitech. Oops. You'll find Logitech Capture. And this is essentially what it looks like. Now, I like Logitech Capture for a handful of reasons. I'm going to get this back to a place where you can actually see what I'm doing. This is recording my left-hand screen monitor. As you can see, I'm using Flashback Express to record this screen capture, because you can't record the screen capture of you recording the screen capture with the same software program. So simple controls, really. Here's your mic volume, your speaker volume. Your record button is right here. You can actually pause the recording. So let's say your phone rings, you can press pause, answer the phone, go right back to where you were. This is how you take a picture of a screen capture. Now, over on the left-hand screen, you can choose the display you want to record. The camera settings, mine are currently set to 720. I know the other one is set to 1080. There's really no difference unless you're going to watch this on like a 60-inch flat screen. Frames per second, you always want as much as you can. Television records at 30 to 60 frames per second, so we try to keep it as high as we can. Video encoder is what it chooses on your computer. You use the default, and this is where everything is being saved. So you can choose your audio input, your audio output. So like I said before, I am using a different type of microphone compared to the one that is integrated into my computer or webcam, just because I like the sound quality of it better. This is not important to you. You're not going to use any of this. These are your hotkeys, much like I showed you in Flashback. So you can set these to do what you want them to do, and you can actually make a profile if that's what you want. What I really like about this program is the ability to do essentially picture-in-picture. I use this program sometimes when I am demonstrating how to maybe put a PowerPoint together, what it looks like in an instructor guide, or how I write test questions, or how to use some software. So you can actually choose to do picture-in-picture. It's going to look a little weird to you. So this is the main monitor I want to show them, but maybe I'm pulling or surfing through my computer stuff on this monitor. You can always minimize this, and now they won't see the recording screen. So now you should be able to see this over on one screen and this down in the bottom left-hand corner. So that's one of the cool little features of this program. So we're going to go ahead and create a short screen capture right here. And all I want to do is screen capture my left screen, much like the other one. So I just press record. It gives me a little countdown just like it did before. And we're going to end up getting rid of this one. So we're just going to record for a couple of seconds. I'm going to move this around to kind of give you an idea of what's happening. There we go. and I'm going to go ahead and stop that recording. Now, this isn't the recording that you're actually watching. This is a recording we just made while we're doing the recording. I know it gets a little confusing. So the quickest and easiest way to find that file is coming down here to the file bin. Click on that, and it's going to pop up. And we're going to drag this over to the screen that I'm actually recording. So, and I like to view by details because it shows me which one I recorded last, which is that one. And I'm going to make this again, and then I'm going to change the title. So if you don't know how to change title, you can either click it, wait a second, click it again, or you can right click and hit rename. I'm sure there's a keyboard shortcut for that, but I don't know. Do not need, delete. So I'm usually much better at keyboarding. However, the problem is it's my keyboard is over to the left. I have the mic in front of me. So I'm going to get rid of that sooner or later, so I don't need it. I know I deleted it, and that's why I titled it the way I did. So I'm going to X out of that. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be actual video editing software. Now, I have two different versions of software on my computer. One is very simplistic, and one is a little bit more advanced, requires more of a learning curve. If you're just going to produce a couple of videos to get by for the next couple of weeks, I would suggest just using the first one I'm going to show you, which is Video Editor, and it comes standard with Windows 10. The next one I'm going to show you is a little bit more advanced, and that learning curve can kind of be frustrating for some folks, but I'm going to show you some basic features of both of them to kind of get you by. Both of these have substantial amount of YouTube tutorial videos that you can actually watch online to see how they work a little bit more. So first one I want to do is I'm going to use Video Editor, which is a standard application in the Windows 10 platform. So we just type in video into the search bar, open that up. All right. So you can see I've already worked on a little bit of a project here, but we're going to click on New Video Project, and we're going to look at some stuff. So we're going to call this ISFSI Video number 2. You can name it whatever you like. So this is the storyboard down here. This is essentially the order that you're going to put videos in. This is also called in other platforms. This is not called storyboard. This is called a timeline. So please don't get too confused because they're often interchanged. This is your media import, and it's a little bit different. We call it a media basket and some other platforms, but we're going to add some stuff to it. So I want to bring it from my PC, and as I told you earlier, I kind of save everything in the same spot. There's a couple of different ways to add this. You can choose files individually. You can hold down with your mouse and select them all, or you can press Control as you're clicking with your mouse and select them and drop them in, which is what we're going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've already got the ISFSI logo. That's who the video is for. So I just want to drag the logo down here, just the logo by itself. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to title my video. And I have two ways of doing this. So I can actually add text right here to the logo. So I can type video making tutorial, but that looks kind of odd. So I can pick the layout. It can go in the middle, it can go on the right, and then I can maybe change that. I don't like that very much. So we can go and we'll just do simple. Here we go. And you can push it over to one side or the other. Here we go. Here. I like that for right now. And maybe if I could spell, that'd be okay too. How about we spell it right? There we go. And since I put it over there, maybe I'll do it in bold instead. Put it there. I like that. So I can put it there. That's one option. And then I'm done. So I'm going to click done. And now that's going to pop up. The next option I have is I can insert a title card. Title card is kind of like credits or an announcement or anything like that. So I'm going to insert a title card. And the cool thing about this is it's very intuitive, it's very user-friendly, and I want the title card over here. And then I'm going to double click on the title card, and I'm going to click on text. And now I'm going to do the same thing. So this is video. And actually I want to try firefighter training video. I'm going to do this a little bit different, and I'm going to change this, and I'm going to go up here to the background, and I'm going to choose this green color. And then in the text, what does this look like? And maybe I'll center it. And then we have something like that. That actually looks kind of cool. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to click done. So I don't need both of these. I'm just using this as an example for you of what it's going to look like. The next thing we're going to look at, especially in the title cards and in the images that you insert, you can change the duration. So that's the next thing on this list right here, change duration. And maybe I want it 5 seconds instead of 3. Not that big of a deal. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is put my first video in there. And if you look up here, as you pull videos in, it kind of dog ears them for you so you can see it. So I got my first video in here. As you notice, your title features kind of, or your line features here kind of change. And we're going to talk about these as we go. I know in this, I can split this video right here, so I can choose where I want to split it. And what that means is, let's say I need to put something in the middle of halfway through this conversation. I can pull this right here, and so my first clip is going to be on the left, my second clip will be on the right, but I really don't want to split this. What I want to do is trim it. So it's going to open up that second screen, and what trimming does, on the other hand, is I know there's something at the end of this that I said, and all I said was hang tight. It's a preference thing. Sometimes you'll say a word and maybe have a hand gesture you want to cut out, or the clip is just too long, you want to make it shorter. You can do that by this. As we go through this, you'll notice I'm not really clicking a lot. I am using the space bar on my keyboard to either start or stop the video. And there are keyboard shortcuts with this, but we're not going to cover those. Squares are both free, so that should make life pretty easy for you. And that's where I want to stop it. That's what I like, because the phrase after that is hang tight, and I don't think that's important. So all I'm going to do is, these are called in point and out point, and I want this video to go out right where I set my cursor. That's it. So, and then when I'm done with that, I'm going to click done, and now it's right there. Also, what you'll look at is with this, anytime you click on any of those other things, you can make it do certain stuff. So I can actually add text to this if I want. And let's say I want to do something simple, like I want to put my name in here, right? There we go. Now you all know who I am. So I can actually put my name in there. All of that's good. I can get rid of that. If I don't want text anymore, I just press the X, it goes away. But we can do all kinds of stuff like this. So we can keep the adventure theme. We can go to classic. So I like the classic because it kind of blurs out down the bottom. There we go. And the one downside of the text stuff is that you really don't have a lot of choice of what else it's going to do. So this will go away after a couple of seconds. So we can click done, and we can actually draw it back just a little bit. Over here, you can scroll this part and it shows you everything that's going on. So we're just going to draw it back a little bit. There's firefighter training video. See, my name's going to pop up for a second, which is kind of cool, and it's going to go away. So that's really, really neat little feature you can do. We're going to pull in this next video and drop it in. And I know there's nothing in here that I want to trim out, so I'm going to add one more title card. We're not going to do the whole video for the sake of time, because they're all really simplistic features. So at the end of the title, or at the end, I like to do something simple, like I'm going to add some text to it, and I'm going to say, and I just put our web address on it. Let's just do that. I use this as kind of, you can do this as credits. You can do this as a way to get people to go somewhere, or if they have more information, maybe your email address, any of that other stuff is fine. So maybe, oof, that's kind of big. There, I kind of like that a little bit. All right, so there we go. Now all of this is ready to go. This is obviously not our full video. The biggest downside, I think, the biggest downside, oops, did not mean to do that. The biggest downside to video editor is that it does not allow for transitions in between these. And what a transition is, give you an example. So I'm going to move my timeline back just a little bit to like right there. I'm going to press play. And what you're going to notice is it's going to jump straight over to that. Okay, let's draw it back even more. And we'll go from me talking. There's a free download as long as you don't want to pay for it. Speed that up just a little bit right there. And it's just a straight jump. Now, in more advanced video editing software, you can put a transition in here. And if you do anything with PowerPoint, you know what a transition is. I'm not saying that you need to have this whirly bird thing come through the screen and transition from screen to screen, but sometimes a crossfade or a simple blur transition makes it a little bit more appealing to the eye. Okay. So there are a couple of other things that you can do. We're just going to pull this video in here. We'll insert it here. So in this one, I can turn this playback speed to that. So it moves it from like 3 minutes down to 4.9, which is, it can do that, but you got to be careful because it's going to do that to the whole clip. So you can add background music. The only downside in the video editor that comes with Windows is if you click up here to background music and you choose any of these. Let's say that one, this one, doesn't matter which one you choose. The downside of adding background music is it's going to add it to the entire video. In Windows, in the Windows version of Video Editor, you cannot just play it in the back or in the front. The whole purpose of this program was not to make these long explanatory videos or game walkthroughs or software walkthroughs. These were simply designed so you could put together like a picture slideshow or something like that towards the end of the year and play music over the top of it. So I'm going to hit a couple more features before I go ahead and finish the video. So you can do camera motion, so you can make it pan right, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out center. So we're going to zoom in center, and we're just going to see what that looks like. So we'll press play. So it's just going to zoom in a little bit more. Now this isn't the best logo, but I'm going to use it anyway for right now. We can make it pan left. See what that looks like. It's just going to move over a little bit. So there's not much motion that's going to be involved in this. Okay. So maybe we're going to keep that. And then in here, we're going to put in a 3D effect. So you can do all kinds of stuff. This is what comes standard. I'm going to have my screen blow up, and I want to have it blow up right there. So I'm going to move it over, put it where I want it. I can actually make it a little bit bigger, smaller. I'm going to put it right there, and I'm done. And it's only going to attach to a point, which means it's only going to come on right there. So move the anchor. There we go. So that's where I want it to do. So we're going to click done. And we're just going to play from here so you can see it. So as we transition, you should see it just pop up. Let's see. It's the only other downside to this program is it's not very, that's what I'm looking for here, easy to get to a specific spot. You'll see the difference when we get into the other program. So those are everything you can do. The last thing I want to show you is this filter thing. It really doesn't do a whole bunch. You can put different color filters, much like Snapchat or any of that other stuff you like to use. So maybe I like that one because I feel loved today. So it's going to change the whole color filter. It's also called a LUT. I mean, for the videos that we do for training and walkthroughs and stuff like that, using filters is a little overkill. So when you're done, you just press finish video. You want it to save at 1080p. We're going to export the video, and what it's going to do is it's going to process it all as one. So I'm going to go back to my desktop. I'm going to find my video editing folder, and I'm just going to throw it in here, ISFSI Video 2, export it, and this is going to take a few minutes to get it done. Like I said, my computer's pretty quick. This is a 6-minute video, and it's going to take about 60 seconds or so to actually render out. And when we use the word render, what we're saying is the video is putting everything in that you have decided you wanted to change. So depending on how much you've actually done inside of this video is how long it's going to take. The more transitions, the more titles, the more stuff like that, the longer that this is going to take. So now our video is done, and it's going to automatically come up and print on this or play on the screen.
Hi guys, my name is James Lannan.
So this is the start of the video. I'm not going to go all the way through this. I like the other video software I'm going to use just a little bit better. So we're going to exit out of this and exit out of that, and we're going to talk about Davinci Resolve. Davinci Resolve is a little bit different of a program. Like I told you before, it's going to be a little bit more advanced. The learning curve is going to be a little bit more steep, but it is free. And quite frankly, this is one of the most utilized software programs for editing video, even by professionals. Other than Adobe Premiere, which is another program out there, it's much more expensive. Davinci Resolve is free unless you want the paid program, which for most of us, that's not going to be necessary. There are other decent programs out there like Power Director by Cyberlink, and there's a handful of online programs. I would be very, very careful with online programs. You just never know what's actually going to come off of that program when you download it. So if you go to blackmagicdesign.com, this web address right here, you're going to click on Davinci Resolve and download it. It is a relatively big file, so it's going to take a couple of minutes. And they make most of their money by actually selling different stuff. But here's what I'm going to tell you is there is a huge collection of tutorial videos on YouTube that you can watch so that you can learn how to do this, because I'm only going to go over some brief stuff. I could spend hours upon hours talking about Davinci Resolve and some of the things you're able to do, but we're going to do down and dirty simple training video. So let's get out of here. Davinci Resolve will download and install under Blackmagic Designs, and you want to actually open up Resolve. So this is what the screen looks like. It's a little bit different compared to what you're used to. So there's a couple of different screens down here. There's a timeline screen, but this is the screen that I like to use. This is the edit screen. This is probably the one that's going to be easiest for you. All right, especially if we're starting. So down here, you have what Windows called the storyboard, but we call this the timeline in most every other program. This is your media pool or media basket. We're going to drop some stuff in that. This is going to be some options you'll be able to choose from here in just a little bit. And this is the inspection panel. So we have to get some files in here. So we're going to go to File, Import Media. And we're just going to go ahead and select everything that we had before. So we're going to go ahead and click open, and it's all going to fall in there. So all we have to do is start dropping stuff onto the timeline. We're in here, and you're going to see some things pop up. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to drop the ISFSI logo into the timeline. Now what's important about this is I'm going to draw some other video in here. So this is really easy to move around. You can put whatever you want. And what's important about this is as you create timelines, so I can create another timeline up there. The lower the video is on the timeline, so 1 versus 2 versus 3. Video 1 will always play over the top of video 2. So even if I put video 2 here on the end of the timeline, or excuse me, it's backwards. Even if I put video 1 here, video 2 is always going to play on top of video 1, just how they're scheduled, right? So I can actually put this there if I want, but I don't want it right now. So I just click it and click delete. So this is my ISFSI logo. It's going to be on video 1. And then our first one is our introduction. So I'm just going to drop it on the timeline. It's really not that difficult. Oh, that's the webcam capture. I should learn to read titles, right? So again, I'm just going to select it. I'm going to press the delete button. And there's my introduction. That's what I'm looking for. I want that right there. So there's a lot of things I can do here. So one of the things that gets a little confusing for me is having this big old space. All of this video here. So if I just click on Control, I can actually scroll through here. I don't have to click on Control. Sorry, if I click on Alt, I can move this around as much as I want. I can click on the little zoom feature and make this a little bit smaller so I could see it better. Make it a little bit larger. There's a lot of things that I could do here. So when you are in the inspector panel, which is over here on the right hand side, the metadata just tells you when it was recorded, how it was recorded. Mixer is all about audio. We're not worried about that just yet. That's more of an advanced thing, doing the audio mix. The inspector panel is kind of what I like to have. So you have timeline and you have the output. The inspector panel lets you kind of change some stuff around. You can zoom in on it, you can position it, you can actually rotate it, we can flip it over if that's what we want to do. Maybe the camera was a little tilted, you can make the adjustments there. So all of these are kind of nice to have. Now if I could just get it back to 0. That's what I get for messing with stuff. You can also just delete it and pull it down there again. It's a little bit difficult sometimes to get that done. Okay. So you can actually crop the picture if that's what you need to do. You can make it smaller. You can do dynamic zoom. You can stabilize it. There's a ton of stuff that you can do in here. Most of this you don't have to do. The audio you can do a little bit different too. But most of this you're never really going to need. So I would suggest just staying out of that inspector panel for right now. So this is what's actually on the timeline. This is what's actually going to produce.
I am the Western Regional Director for the International.
So again, I like keyboard commands, so I'm just going to press pause on that for right now. I'm going to leave that in place. Now, for whatever reason, we're going to zoom in just a little bit. There is audio attached underneath right here. And I believe that is nothing of importance. So we're just going to delete that. But, oh, our title went away. So we're going to hit Control Z, which is undo. And we're going to click on this, and we're going to takes me a second to find it. Okay, there is nothing there. My mistake. See, we're going to keep on rolling through this. I told you I'm not perfect at this. There should be a spot in here where you can go ahead and delete selected. There it is. Whew, I missed it. Okay, so now that audio is gone. And I wanted that gone for a reason. I'm going to explain why here in a second, because we're going to put a little bit of background music on this just because I like the intro. And this is another thing. So we're going to zoom back out. And we're going to push this over here. And remember how I told you earlier that video 2 will always be on top of video 1. So right now, this clip length is not very long. So we're going to check and see how long it is real quick. We're going to come up here. We're just bring our red thing back over. And it's less than a second. So we're going to push this out. All right, 4 seconds. I want to make this about 10 seconds long, give or take some. And I'm watching that over here. Actually, I want to make this 5 because I'm going to add a title here in just a minute. That's close enough. It's 6 seconds. Good enough. We're not looking for spectacular here. So this is where we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go into the effects library up here at the top. This is where you can put in titles and do some kind of interesting things like transitions. And it's really not super, what's the word I'm looking for? there's not a lot in it because it is a free program. Now, if you want something with more options, you can either pay for the free program or you can, you can pay for the upgrade or you can utilize something else. So this is really easy. So when you double click on it, the inspector button automatically comes up. So our title, and we can do a lot of stuff in here. So we're going to put ISFSI video on how to make videos. So this is essentially what we're going to do. And then we can go in just like this. It's mostly like Word or any other text program. So we're going to center that. And I want to change all of this text right here. I want to make it red. So I changed the ISFSI to red. That stays white. And maybe I want ISFSI bigger. So that's still highlighted there. And I'm going to increase size. This is not the same as like Word. It doesn't go by character point. It goes by size of the screen. And again, I want to make sure all of this is centered. Oh. See, even I still make mistakes sometimes, so I have to unhighlight that. I apologize. Take it all. And I've centered it. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's never going to be perfect. It may look a little different. There we go. Okay. I can also change the text to this. So maybe I just want ISFSI to be, let's see, Franklin's pretty good. There, ISFSI changes to that. And I want to reduce the size of this just a little bit. Go. I can actually push it out. I mean, that's doable. I'm pretty happy with that. It's not perfect, but then again, that's not what we're shooting for. I just want to show you the basics. So now we have a title screen in here. And that's good as it gets. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to drag it back over to where I want it. Now, so this is our first portion of the video. This is just that first section and we're only a minute and 3 seconds in. So the next one I want to do is I want to go back to my media pool and I want to find my next clip, which I talked about computer requirements. So now I'm going to drag this down there. And again, we're getting big, right? So we're just going to line it up pretty even. And I'm going to go ahead and just zoom out a little bit. So this is where the cool thing comes into play. So if you hit this effects library, and so you have video transitions, audio transitions, titles is where I was a second ago. You have other effects like adjustment of the clip. You can do some type of generators. So you can make a solid color, you can do grayscale, all kinds of cool little stuff like that. But what is important, again, simplistic stuff, is we want to do a cross dissolve. So we don't need anything, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't need anything spectacular. So that you select a clip by just clicking on it, select the other clip by clicking on that. But if you come right in the middle of the two, you notice you have these two bars. And I'm going to get, you have these two bars, and then you just drag this cross dissolve right into those two bars. Hold on. Doesn't like that very much. All right, so there we go. So I'm gonna drag this away. I'm gonna get it close. And it's gonna ask me a question. So I can also right click and we're gonna add a 6-frame cross dissolve. It's gonna ask me if I wanna trim the clips or skip the clips. I'm gonna skip them. Excuse me. I'm gonna trim them. Not that big of a deal. And I'm just going to show you the difference where it was before versus now. So we click on this.
So we're going to get started. We're going to start with the easiest stuff first. Hang tight.
You'll notice how it just transitions in.
All right, so
nice and simple like that. But what I forgot to show you earlier is how to delete this. So I have that cross dissolve there. I press the delete button. I'm going to move that. And so this is the problem I get into. I didn't like that. If you remember right, I didn't like the speech I used. So I have a couple of different choices. I can just drag this. And I can continue just...
Screen capture software, and we're going to look at two types of video editing software. One of them comes on most
wait
PCs
and get it to where I want it.
Windows 10. The other one is a free download as long as you don't want to pay for it. And the screen capture software free. So that should make life pretty easy for you.
So I don't like it there, so I can just drag this right back to that point, and that's where it's going to cut off. So that's pretty easy. The other thing I can do is I can click on this, and again I can click on this inspector software, and I can choose to trim this. Where's my trim button? I can cut it. Remember how we talked about that? That's in the blade. So I can go into trim edit mode, and I can swing it back just like I did before, back to the selector. I mean, there's a ton of ways to do this. This is the fastest and easiest way. So if you want to add a transition, the default transition is a cross dissolve. The quickest way to do that is click in the middle like I told you, press Control T, and again we're going to trim the clips and we're going to put it together. So we're going to go back to that. We're going to zoom in just a little bit further so I can see it better on this side. I'm going to click that in between the two clips. I'm going to click this in between the two clips, and I'm going to hit Control T, and I'm going to trim the clips, and those transitions automatically get put in place. So it's actually going to look kind of cool now.
Hi guys, my name is James Lannan.
There we go. So what about text? Let's say you want to know who I am. So we're going to do a middle lower third. A lower third is a part that covers up down here, kind of like you see on the news, right? So we're going to do a middle lower third, and we're going to put that right over the top of me, and we're going to click the inspector on it. So double click, and the title is my name. Oh, that's a lot, right? So I actually kind of like it like that, but I want to pull it down a little bit, and I want to do some fun stuff with it. So maybe I want this to have scroll down here, and I do not want to drop shadow. I do want a background, and I want a background color of black. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to increase my outline width here. You're not going to be able to see much of it, but there is kind of an outline to it. No drop shadow. Sorry, I want this right there. There we go. That's where I wanted it. So I just cut it out of there. We're going to make this a little bit bigger. Not that big. We just got to play with it a little bit. And maybe we'll make it like 45. No, not big enough. That'll work. Okay, let's say I just want to make this a different color. I don't like using reds because reds have tendency to blur a little bit. So white's always good. Whoops. Helps if I select it, right? Here we go. And again, I like the Franklin font, so we're just going to go up there, click on that. And there's a lot of different things you can play with in here to make your text a little bit better. So you can change that. So there's your nice little background. But if we're going to do that, we probably ought to make it a little bit bigger. So if you notice, I'm just hovering over the number. There we go. Right about there. That's good. And that's where I want it. So I can also change the transition down a little bit. And so this is just going to pop up.
Hi guys, my name is.
I don't like where that is, so I'm just going to move it down the screen a little bit.
Hi guys, my name is James Lannan. I am the Western Regional Director for the International Society of Fire Service Instructors.
And there, that's solid. Okay, so that's the easy part so far. So we've done some easy stuff. I'm going to do one more thing. And I know we've covered a lot in a short amount of time, but once again, I don't want to spend forever and a day on this. So the last thing I want to do is I want to insert some type of music down here. So I can do this a lot of different ways. I'm going to go into my media pool and I'm going to add a file, import media, and I got to go into my background music. And there's a lot of different places you can get background music. You just have to kind of search around for it. A lot of it's free. So I'm going to do, let's see if I can find it. Bear with me. Take me just a second. And all right, maybe we do this Heartbeat 2. So Heartbeat 2, we're going to put Audio 2 track. And we're going to do just like we did before. And you can either bring this up in the inspector or you can do it right here. And we're just going to cut it down because we're not looking for anything great. This may or may not stay here while we're doing it. And I'm going to put it right here. And the cool thing about this is, so we zoom in like I showed you before. And we're going to scroll all the way back over. This is our Heartbeat track over here. This is what it's called. See this little line right here? This little line is pretty interesting. This little line can increase and decrease the volume of your background music and or your own audio. So let's say I wasn't talking loud enough here. I can do that. But I don't want this to be super loud when we come in. So I'm going to click on this little white dot right here. And I can actually open this up. And I can transition some stuff in here. Okay, so it's actually pretty easy to fade your audio because we don't want to jump right into it, right? So if we do, this is what it's going to be like as soon as the screen comes on. I'm not a big fan of that. So what we're going to do is come down here. We're going to hover over this white line or this white little corner here. The arrows are turned to white. We're just going to draw that back a little bit to about there. Just a couple of seconds. Not even a full second, really. We're going to do the same thing over on this end quite a bit. So we're going to see what that sounds like real quick. Little techno.
Hi guys.
Okay, I actually want to draw this audio back just a little bit. I don't like this section. So what I want to do is I want to move this down. Go over here. I'm going to pull this out, which is the lower end or the startup point. I drag that all the way there. I don't want this to cross over, so I'm going to bring that to there. And there's my fade out point. We have all that done. And then I want to create a little bit of a fade there. Shouldn't be too bad. And we're going to see what that looks like now. And that is essentially it. So again, down at the end, like I did on the last one, this is not the end of the video, obviously, but let's say it were. We're going to do one last thing so we can go back up to the effects library. We're going to do a title, and we're just going to do a text. So you can do Fusion titles too. Some of these are pretty cool. Spend some time working on those if you want. But I'm going to go back up here to the top. I'm just going to do text. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to drag it right to the end. And I'm going to double click. The inspector is going to open, and my text is going to be, whoops, sorry about that. Get back over here. My text is going to be www.isfsi.org. Make it pretty big. Make it pretty big, about yay big. And I want this. I'm going to change. And this is a cool part. Anything you highlight, you can change. And yes, I have a thing for this Franklin Gothic Demi stuff because it's pretty nice. And red on black will work. So there you go. It stands out. And the last thing everybody asks is, how do I get it to fade to black? Well, that's pretty easy. You just grab another text title with the black background. And again, select between the two. Control T gives you that default transition, which is kind of nice. And we're going to do the same thing on this one. Control T, default transition. We'll go ahead and trim the clip. Not that big of a deal. And this is our movie. Now, granted, this is not the whole thing that we're about to do, and there's a ton of other stuff you can get done. Okay, you can also download stuff from the sound library. I mean, this will be, you know, everything from, whoops, you have to register again. I log in, but I don't want to give you all that information. So you can download stuff from the Davinci library and get that in there. I like to find my own personally, so I get that in my media pool. This is obviously not the whole thing, but spend some time with it. I think you'll enjoy it. So once we have everything kind of the way we want it, we can actually watch the video all the way through. It'll play in real time up here on the screen. That part's pretty easy. The last button we're going to hit is right here, this little launch button down in the corner. It's going to ask us how we want to do this. So we title it, and this will be the ISFSI demo. Too many eyes. How come nobody can ever type when people are watching? So we want this to be a single clip. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. We can browse where we want it to save. So this one, again, I'm going to go into my video editing folder, ISFSI demo, and I want to save that program. And then we're going to add to the render queue. This is what's important. Add to render queue. It's going to pop up here on the right hand side, and we're going to start render. Now, again, my computer's pretty quick, but this is going to take maybe 2 or 3 minutes with my computer, a little bit faster, a little bit slower, depending on the system you have. So this is going to render out, and again, this is not the entire video that I'm going to upload. I'm making a video of how to make the video, so I have a lot more to put in here. But one thing that I do want to mention to you is that there is a ton of time that it's going to take to actually master this program, and I've only shown you a little tidbit. So we're going to let this render out in the background, and I'm going to show you, we're going to do a little time-lapse thing here, and I'm going to show you how to put this onto YouTube and how to kind of market it out. YouTube is probably one of the most utilized forms of social media that we have out there, and probably one of the most underutilized by fire districts. We tend to use social media quite a bit to talk about calls. We do promotional videos for smoke alarms, that kind of stuff. So this is our YouTube channel. It's pretty simplistic. This is everything that we've kind of uploaded so far, some of the videos that we've shared and or followed. We also use this for training for our folks. You can use it for multiple different things. One thing I would suggest is not tying this to any one person's email account within your organization. I would set up a simple email account like ours is westerntaneyfire@gmail.com, and then sharing that password. That way multiple people have access to your YouTube channel. There is ways to do that within security settings, but should somebody decide to leave your organization who has access to this, it's easier to change one password than to go through the privacy settings. So we're going to upload a video that I already did earlier for my folks under our emergency reporting program. YouTube is fairly simple to use once you get your account created. I mean, everything's point click. You click up here, you add your photo. You can actually decide to kind of subcategorize videos. But we're just going to throw something up here real quick, and we're going to upload the video. You can also go live on YouTube, which we don't have tendency to do. So we're going to select the file. And there's a video I want to upload. This is going to take a few minutes to get it done, but the things that I want to show you that are important. So the title is how you're going to find it. So we title ours for our training stuff. I would be very, very careful how much you put in here if you don't want people to see it. If you're more apt, for example, that you just want it to go out to your people, but you need a public platform that everybody can see, and you don't want to put it on a web page or intranet or anything like that, then you can be kind of cryptic in your title because that's how people find it. You can also make the video private later. So short description. Short, sweet, and simple. So it's in the process of uploading the video. This is going to take just a couple of minutes to actually get done. So we're going to come back to it shortly. Our video has now been uploaded. It took about 4 minutes to get it done. This video is probably about 15 minutes long. So some of the things I want to show you that weren't available right before we uploaded the video is you can actually see the video preview here. It's 10 minutes 13 seconds long, and then it's auto going to populate some thumbnails for you, which are little bits or frames that it steals out of the video, puts up there and says, hey, what do you want the picture to look like? I like having our logo on stuff, so I'm going to select that one. I don't need to put it into a playlist. So this one I'm just going to kind of put up in there real quick. And so we have things like officer training. These are all categories that we initiated to put stuff onto our YouTube channel. So we're just going to kind of leave it there. I might add it to communications, and we'll hit next. I mean, it's kid friendly, but it's not really made for kids. We're not going to do any age restrictions on it. Again, next, add an end screen. Don't really need to do that. Don't need to add a card. So this is stuff that kind of works for promotion. People who do marketing or make money through YouTube utilize these extensions. We don't really need to do that. So this is what I was talking about before. You can either save and publish to make public, which means it's searchable by anybody on the internet, or we can set as unlisted or private. So you can actually select this and send a link out to people, or you can put it as unlisted, which means anyone with the link can see your video. This one's only people you choose. You can schedule a date to make it public. We make all of our stuff public. I would highly recommend that if you're going to make anything private or unlisted, that you check with your state and local ordinances and laws. In the state of Missouri, we can't have any private communication unless it's personnel related, which this one isn't. So we are going to bypass that, and we're going to go ahead and publish it. Again, it's already processed, it's already uploaded. It was just asking me how I want it to be viewed or found. And that is essentially it. So now we can share it directly to our Twitter, our Facebook, or any other thing that we may have. When we don't need to do that, I can also copy this link, and now I can drop it into an email and send it to all my folks. We covered a lot of ground, and I know it took a little bit longer than we initially thought, but I think it was well worth it, and hopefully I passed on a few things for you. So some closing thoughts before I end the video. Number one, video, like I said before, is becoming probably the most popular medium for getting things across. It's really what the newer generations expect, and the older generations are actually getting used to it. So the generational argument, if I make a video, the older guys won't watch it, and it's only for the younger guys, isn't really true. We've had success throughout the generational lines of making videos and training events and stuff like that. In addition to not only doing it for training, doing it for public outreach or public events, and just letting the public know what you're doing by posting on YouTube or Facebook will grow your following exponentially in the support from your community. So for those of you who are worried about, hey, I don't like the sound of my voice, or, you know, I really don't like being in front of the camera, I'm the same way. So I never liked the sound of my voice, especially if after it's been recorded, and I never thought I'd be the guy who sits in front of a camera and posts stuff on YouTube. But the thing is nobody ever died from doing that. Everybody else has the same insecurities that you might. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And if you're really that person that doesn't want to be in front of the camera, get somebody else to do it. You can go out there. There are several colleges in our area. We've utilized people from computer science classes, from web design classes, stuff like that. They're always looking for projects that they can do for school. And you can reach out to any of those professors or schools, even high schools, and let the community kind of get involved in other ways than actual firefighting. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some type of insight into some basic editing stuff. I am available by email. I'm going to post it back into this screen here in just a minute. And if you have any other questions, just reach out. Until then, stay safe and watch each other's backs.